This has been a very good discussion in terms of the things that you've touched on across the board. I know Ms. Brown had a question.
I just have
another question.
I just have a couple more that I just wanted to put on your mind and just put out there. One, there's been a consolidation of the SBDCs, and there was supposed to be some funding that we were to provide as a state to match the federal government. One, did we do that? The next thing I wanted to just put out there is in Michigan, the governor of Michigan came to California, and she was talking about whenever the economy turned down, the automobile dealers, the automobile manufacturers left, and she said that they decided, well, we're going to have to look at developing small businesses because there's nothing else here. One of the things that she said was that they started it, but they found out that people didn't know how to do a business because for generations and generations they had been employees. So they had to go all the way back to try to work with people who just had the inkling that they might be able to start a business. And that's how Detroit and Michigan has started to come back. That was one of the thoughts, and I'm wondering if there's a lesson in there for us. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was, whenever you have a business and you have these business folks, first of all, I've done several small business hearings, and one of the things they keep telling us is, you want us to come to you to tell us what we need to do, and we can't run our businesses if we're coming out to talk to you. So some of the things have not been as successful as they could have been. Those are some areas that I'd like to hear you maybe just briefly mention.
Yeah, and in our collective impact strategy, it really looks at, going into regions across the state and having a way for businesses, for community development corporations, for ethnic chambers to collaborate in developing and do so with the help of our state legislators and with our state agencies and the private sector and foundations, but find a way for us to really hammer out having a shared agenda to meet the needs of those businesses and those economic developers, a shared measurement system, having mutually reinforcing activities, which basically, if you're good in R&D, do R&D. If you're good in, one, do what you do, but we don't have to all do the same thing, but let's move towards the same direction. And then fourthly, having that ongoing communication so that we can, over time, build a system that works. And then, having backbone organization support, such as the California Urban Partnership, such as CalEd, and the Inland, the TIMS group. So I think that's one way to approach us meeting people where they are, meeting the businesses where they are, so that we can help them grow and compete.
Assemblymember Brown, just a couple of points. Your question on match, I think that you did approve the $2 million match, which is the reference that Joel had made, and we're looking to see that approval again in this year's budget as well. Is that enough? I would say no. But I would say that when you look, it's not enough, but that $2 million resulted in $200 million of access to capital. So, I think it would be great to see that $2 million, but it also depends on what are the rest of the goals that you want out of GoBiz as well. So I think there's a balance there. I would love for you guys to throw as much money as you can at economic development programs. So the answer is it enough? Will probably always be no from me. So the match did happen. The other thing I want to mention, you're talking about going to where the businesses are. The majority of local economic development organizations do business visitation. They do it in partnership with their chambers, their elected officials. We've got some great best practice models that I'd be happy to share with you without going into further detail. Also, within the, if you're familiar with the iHub program, I think what you'll find across the state is that regionally and within maybe just jurisdictions, there is entrepreneurial support, and it's not consistent how it happens across the state. So there's model practices across the state that we can share with you. But one of the things that does come up is teaching kids, when you ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? How many of them will say, I want to be my own boss? I want to have my own business. That education starts early, and there are some programs at the elementary school level that are addressing it. Again, I don't know that that's across the state.
Thank you very much. Would you like to just add something to that?
I think it's a very good question, and I think one of the things that we've identified at CalEd, and Gerbax didn't mention this, but some of the tools that we have put together at CalEd, and as we have reprioritized our organization, are things that were gaps in programs in the state. And so CETA is an example, does not compete with the iBank. It actually addresses the smaller businesses. I think one of the challenges that we have is that a lot of the programs, I think when you do an audit and you look at who's taking advantage of the programs, it's very challenging for small businesses. And I've experienced this with the enterprise zones. As we went into businesses to have meetings about the opportunities for enterprise zones, the person that owned the business that was doing manufacturing was on the line with his employees. For him to stop and actually take advantage of those opportunities was a real challenge. And so there really has to be an ombudsman. There really has to be somebody that can assist them. And we try to do that at our organization. And I think that that's what needs to be done. But I think the GoBiz has some great programs, but getting them to the local level is the challenge, and we're willing to do that. I know at CalEd we're actually looking at developing a training program specifically for the state initiatives so that we can assist local economic developers to be able to assist their communities. And I think that's the strategy, is to get, you don't go to the businesses, you go to the networks that go to the businesses, and that's the way that we can leverage the resources, and that's what's needed.
Sir Ayala?
I'll be quick. It's not always just about the match. It is truly about the partnership. When we first launched GoEd, or this office, we had the small business development centers in-house. They had an office, and any call that came in that was 100 employees or less went directly to the small business development centers. It increased our numbers, it increased our outreach, it increased the impact immediately. And they had case managers that worked directly with those individual businesses and startups and so on. And that handled everything from somebody just getting into multi-level marketing to launching investor type businesses, but it was functioning. The current match of $2 million is only for capital infusion. If they could broaden that so that it would allow for startups, marketing, other areas of technical assistance, I think that would be beneficial, whether it's just within that $2 million or if there's additional dollars to promote that as well. I think it's important, as the Assemblywoman mentioned, as far as taking it to the businesses as well. This is the first year where, after 40 years, we're taking our convention to the Inland Empire. We have never been there. And so it's important, especially after we've seen the turmoil and strife, and but not just on the downside, but on the upside as far as the possibilities for distribution, international growth, so on and so forth, that we think it's important for us to provide that highlight. And finally, if you look at the data, the millennials at this point, our future problem solvers should be more entrepreneurial, and we're not seen as much in the business startups, and so we need to enhance that environment. We often call them our marijuanials, but for our young entrepreneurs, the future is going to be, successes are going to be on their backs. Thank you.
The Vice Chair has one question.
Let me ask you Mr. Ayala or anyone on the panel can address this question. Do you see there is a glaring gap between how the state operates its economic development activities, and how can the state better collaborate and work with you guys? I know, Joel, you've been there when GoBiz was first started, and as the head of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, you see how at the local level it can collaborate and work together with the state organization like this. But there are more organizations out there, as previously asked and addressed. More groups are not aware of the existence of GoBiz. So I know we're talking again and again about the community outreach efforts. So how can we better collaborate with organizations like yours, Black Chamber of Commerce, we have representatives from the California Asian Chamber of Commerce. We represent all different spectrum of groups that can benefit from this, yet we're not out there.
And I think it is about leveraging those partnerships and programs that are currently in place, adding a little more formalization around them, the good work that comes out of CalEd as well, helping our chambers to become better economic developers, because they've often just been people who know their own individual communities, promote their local business, and know about the business community, but on a broader spectrum, they need to be more engaged into the individual community, and how does their perspective and growth of the business support the entire community going forward. So I think it truly comes down to commitment and resources, because GoBiz needs to be strengthened as it stands. When they are only able to help the majority of their clients, or those that are referred to them, it sets up for a bad system where they choose or they pick the winners and losers, because it's the people that they help, and it's only the people that have gotten to them by some means or another.
Thank you. I'm going to pose one last question. I'm going to excuse myself at this time, and our Vice Chair will close out the hearing, allowing for public comments. But I want to thank you for having us have this conversation that I think is extremely important. In November, we had a hearing in the Inland Empire to talk about the income inequalities and how closely they tie to the investments that we see or don't see happening in our distressed communities throughout California. One of the things that came from that hearing was the need to look at all major investments that the state makes through the lens of equity analysis application formula, if I may. Those were the terms that we used. And what we're saying is that whether if we're talking about infrastructure investment or the greenhouse gas reduction funds, or for that matter, the workforce training and development dollars that we have, it isn't so much new money, it's existing money, but that it get redirected to areas where we can have, to use business terms, a good return on its investment. And so I've heard that throughout the conversations today, and I'm looking forward to the discussion on March 15th with our Economic Development Agency, and hope that you all participate in that discussion as well. One last question for me, and we'll let the Vice Chair move the rest of the meeting forward, and that is, do you see the State Economic Development Agency as the leader, convener, facilitator, or capacity builder? And maybe just in one word, if you'll respond to that, either starting to my left here and work our way down.
In one word, a convener.
Okay.
In one word, a partner.
In one word, a partner.
Convener, facilitator, capacity builder, and then a leader. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you again. I'm going to let well, I think we've announced we have no public comments. I want to thank you again for participating with us. Remind you of the March 15th hearing. I mean, we don't have anyone that's signed up unless there's someone that wants to come up and share. I'm hoping that there are, and the vice chair will facilitate the end of the hearing. So.
Ms. Vice Chair, could I just...
Yes, please, go ahead.
I wanted to, I know that we're talking about Inland Empire, and I want to specifically point to San Bernardino. As you know, that city has filed and is in bankruptcy. Any ideas about what we can do to I'm so sorry. That city is in bankruptcy. Any ideas about what we can do to promote, one, the small businesses, to grow the small businesses that are there, to help to revive that economy? Any ideas?
Certainly one of the ideas I think is to look at clusters of businesses that exist within San Bernardino, and then to help those businesses partner, joint venture in various public and private sector contracting opportunities. Another idea would be to create opportunities for the venture capital community, or for those businesses to have an audience with the venture capital community, with angel investors. Hopefully we can keep the devils out. Yeah. But those are some of the ideas that I have.
So I would say two things to your question. One, the bankruptcy for the city, I think, would be a separate issue than how do you keep those businesses alive. I mean, the city has probably some unique problems that they need technical assistance with that's separate from what the issues might be for the local businesses. I think it's important to know what you have. What are your competitive strengths? What are your competitive disadvantages? Identify what are the specific problems for the businesses that you want to help in that community, and then look for resource partners. I know the county has a really strong economic development program, so is there an opportunity for the city and county to partner? Are there other neighboring cities that can assist that city's businesses? I mean, more and more we hear economic development organizations and other partners talk about the importance of regional collaboration. So it's not the city doing it on its own. It's who else out there in the environment can assist.
Well, I think looking at a strategy, first of all, you want to retain the businesses you have. And as I mentioned...
First of all, we've lost. I was looking at some numbers this week. We've lost businesses. People have just closed up and left.
And so one of the things that I found in the Imperial County, as we've talked to businesses, they were not aware of programs that could assist them. Retraining, workforce training programs, a lot of the programs that the state offers, et cetera. And so, first of all, it's having an opportunity to listen to the businesses, what their needs are, and then providing a way to assist them. As I mentioned, small businesses are busy running their businesses, not looking for how they could increase their investment, and that's what you need to do, is increase the investment in those communities. The other thing, an initiative that we just recently completed, was a process of identifying basically we call it a developer's handbook, but how to start a business. And making sure that that every agency within a city is cooperating and making that process as easy and streamlined as possible. And what we found is our challenge was, number one, we were in California, so everybody thought it was difficult. We had a reputation of getting things done, and we needed to prove that we could do that, or how we did it. And so we actually documented that, and we went to the different agencies and asked them for their process, and then improved upon that. And they felt that they were engaged in that process, and I think it's really something that's helped the morale of the employees of the county and our cities.
Yeah, I might add, in addition to what Ms. Sahota and Mr. Kelly mentioned, once we identify what is the competitive strengths and weaknesses of San Bernardino County and the cities around the city, I think we might be able to, if we can identify some foreign investors to encourage regional centers. If your city is capable, or you can attract those foreign investors to come, a regional center might be one that could be really helpful, because again, we could bring in more resources and create more jobs as well, and it will also be in line with what we are encouraging at this committee by expanding the EB-5 programs. So that might be one. But did you want to add something?
Yes, I agree with the panel here that the city's going to work out its issues, and they'll have a unique set of issues. But you do have, or you will have, a morale problem, a public perception problem, happiness problem for your business environment as far as, going to work, what their expectations are, and they're going to get the feeling, am I heading down the same path? If I'm not getting customers because customers feel that San Bernardino is in bankruptcy and we can't service those accounts or what have you. So again, I lead back to, the technical assistance. I lead back to support for those businesses. And maybe as we go forward, as we look to allocate resources, maybe we should begin to provide a priority to cities and counties that are in bankruptcy. Maybe that's a priority for GoBiz to be a little more proactive. To maybe I know in the past they've sent out red teams, they've sent out strike teams that go out and they evaluate the situation. They take a look at the resources, the businesses, the industries, and so on, and then they come up with some kind of a plan. And I think tying that in with more, foreign investment is a good opportunity to look at as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank the panel. As we close, I know we don't have anyone who signed up to provide public comment, but I would like to see if anyone else would like to address before we close. This is the public comment section, so seeing none, I guess we can close the hearing. So I want to thank the panel for joining us today, and I'd like to thank the public for being here. Thank you.
And we'll be back on the 15th.
We'll be back on March 15th.